The Finance Committee on February 11, 7 PM. So I've heard from Sandy, she is not feeling so great, and then Rob had a conflict that he wasn't able to come tonight, but otherwise, I think we have a quorum. So let's identify ourselves for the record. Howard, you want to start?
Howard D'Amico.
Heather Moore.
Ryan Hogan.
Lynn Mazzoli.
Dick Vandenberg,
Michael Huttner.
Carol Gogolinski.
and nobody's on Zoom, so we will carry on with Patrice, are you here? Council on Aging, you guys have something in front of you. So Patrice, just identify yourself for the record, would you?
Patrice Rousseau, the Senior Center, Adult Social Center Director.
Yeah. So Patrice, we read over what you shared with us, and we appreciate that. So before we have questions from the group, are there kind of 2 or 3 main things you'd like to take out of your report, rather than going through every item? Either some highlights that we should focus on,
Yeah, I think that we've,
other than the growing number of
growing-
people, right?
growing number of people. I thought before COVID, right, we were doing really well. But I've never seen, all the other directors are saying the same thing. I had a meeting with them last month. Their numbers are increasing too, because we've got a lot of 65 and 70-year-old people. Some people are still working from home, so they can come down, do an exercise class, and pop back home. So we are really, really seeing a lot of younger seniors, and all of our regular seniors that have been with us forever and a day. And we're welcoming a couple of hundred now every year. So that has put a little bit of strain on the center itself. We only have 2 bathrooms. I only have 18 parking spots. We do use the church, but that's only a few spots because the post office employees
Right,
park
yeah.
over there. The staff will park usually over at the Goodness Store during a big event. If they're not doing something over there, they're kind enough to let us park there. So parking, bathrooms, and space.
So as you are working on your budget for the next year,
Yeah.
what was the hardest part of it?
Working on the budget?
Yeah, were there some things that you really had a furrowed brow over as you were working on the budget in terms of income or expenses and so on?
I don't feel that way because, I mean, I'm fortunate, unlike some of the other centers in the area, that the regular budget from the town pays for my employees. So I'm able to utilize my grant funding to pay for all of the things that the seniors are doing for free, like the exercise programs. That's what the state wants. They want us to utilize this money for seniors to come out and be active in all these groups and not have to pay for it. Some of the other directors are having to utilize their grant money to pay for their van drivers or their part-time staff or their outreach coordinators, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I am very fortunate to have that. So no, I have no problem with that.
And the getting of the grant money, has that been pretty consistent year to year?
Yes, so this year they gave us $15 a senior, so we ended up with a few $1,000s more, which is nice. We're also able to roll over the grant money, which we weren't before. Which
really?
was, yeah, so it was a little bit crazy because at the end of the year, if you know, I'm pretty frugal all year, right? Because you never know if something's going to come up. So, but, you know, March or April comes and you're like, great, I have $7,000, what am I going to buy with it? So I tried to do improvements down at the center. You know, we had new ceilings fans put in one year. We bought some new cabinets that we needed. We had a new conference table that we needed, some tables and chairs for the card groups and things. And that's what I would do. But it just seemed to me like so frivolous just to do that. So now we don't have to do that anymore. They do not limit any of our spending at all. We can spend it on anything that we like that has to do with the center or the seniors, and they let us roll it over. So that's been extremely helpful, being able to keep up with all the exercise classes.
Now, do you do the grant writing yourself? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So every year we do an annual report. We used to have to do a really specific kind of grant. Now we do an annual report for the state. It shows all our numbers, where we're at, what we're utilizing our money for. But that's all. They don't make us do the detailed grant writing anymore. I do that just for the Cultural Council and for other little things that I try to put in for to offset other expenses. So
And then how's the van working out?
the van is amazing, and the van has done a tremendous amount of rides. It's done a couple of thousand rides this year.
Yeah.
And I did put in the WRTA only to show that seniors are still using it to go to Worcester. But when they broke down the numbers to me, we only had 62 people that went to medical appointments. 320 younger seniors are using it to go to work. Or maybe somebody who's disabled is using the WRT to go to work. So our van is going around to Milford, and it's going to the physical therapy place in the area, and the eye doctors and such, and back and forth to the center, which has given us a tremendous amount of more growth, because some seniors who couldn't get there before or didn't want to take the elder bus because it's a long wait time to get picked up or dropped off.
Right.
So that's definitely helped our numbers as well.
Hey, Patrice, has there been any surprises with the van in terms of what you thought it would be and what it has become, or is it kind of as you expected in terms of use and so on?
I would say it's as I expected it, because I knew that there was such a need for it. But the surprise is that some of the seniors that are coming to the center that I never thought would ever come.
Really?
Yes. So we had a couple of people that I would, physically visit doing outreach and such. And they have joined in the center. Sometimes, I think that maybe some people don't understand, but sometimes the only person that one of these seniors might see all week, or the only meal they might have all week with people, is at the center. So when you have some shut-ins that are now coming to the center to join in and making friends, that's really, really valuable to them emotionally and physically. So that was probably the best surprise, is the outreach that it's been able to give.
So in terms of the town part of your budget, you're content with how that's been going?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Any questions, anybody, for Patrice?
Did you manage to get drivers okay for the van?
Yes, so and the best part about the van is that the drivers are senior center staff. They're the staff, right? So they're continuity.
Yeah.
They can do the extra mile. They can bring you groceries in for you.
Right.
They're around the senior center in between rides, helping out, serving lunches, or engaging with the seniors. So they're a part of the staff. So, which is really, really nice. And the drivers are spectacular. Yep, so we have Bill, and we have Jane, and we have Lori, and they're all within town,
Right.
so they know a lot of people. And Cassandra was a part-time van driver, and she actually just moved over to the cook position. And everybody was thrilled because everybody knows her. So when she comes out now serving lunch, it's continuity. So it's been really great.
How's the van been mechanically? Has it been reliable? Has there been bizarre service issues?
It's a Ford. So it's,
Fix or repair daily, right?
So it's had a couple of recalls that it's gone over for, but I've known well in advance, and they weren't anything that was going to be, one is like a little bracket that will help it not rattle so much when it's driving, so it just makes it quieter, and something else was a light bulb that could go. So we had those taken care of. We did have one problem with the lift, which was fixed immediately, and we noticed it right away before it was even on the road last year. Sometimes when they sit for a little bit, the hydraulic fluid, I guess, can come out of one of the lines. So that was fixed right away. And other than just going for regular maintenance, we haven't had any issues. And all of that was covered under warranty, so.
So any costs for keeping up the van, will those come out of our town budget, or does grant money cover that?
Yep, so the only thing that grant covers right now is the van cell phone. I have that, and any supplies we need for the van. I put in like wipes or Lysol or anything that we would need goes through the grant. And then Mr. Wojcik had factored in my fuel and my maintenance in my regular general budget.
Okay, and you're content with how that's been figured?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
All right, anybody else? Questions for Patrice?
More like a commentary. I'm just so glad that we were able to finally get this for the community, right? And reaching our most vulnerable as we get old, right? And not having somebody there just for the cognitive of reaching out. So thank you and your staff for all that they do
Oh, yeah.
for our community. I really do appreciate it.
We definitely enjoy it, and I think it has. It's been very welcome. And again, it's our staff that they're seeing, so it's not a different driver, and if it is, it's somebody that they know. So it is very, very important to get out, and I'm very happy about that aspect of it.
Patrice, long-term, is there any money we need to be thinking about for remodeling the space or giving you a bigger kitchen or any of that kind of thing, or not?
Oh, I could do that. Yeah, I could ask for that right now. That's how busy we are. I mean, the main room gets set up all day long, right? So we have like 5 or 6 or 7 programs going on either simultaneously or in that main room. So now, everything has gotten so big, all the numbers are so big, we started line dancing. So we put a sign-up sheet out. We got a little mini grant. Jennifer had put on our exercise steps through the MCOA. It was a contest. We won. So we decided to do line dancing. 25 people signed up the first week. And then I had to wait list anybody that was from out of town. And then you see how a program's going to go after a couple weeks, if anybody's going to fall off or not. And no, there was 20 of them down there this afternoon, line dancing. So that takes a lot of space. So we move it, and then tomorrow morning we have osteo, and then we have darts going in another room. And so the main room, I have to limit everything to 50 people. And I have to limit every exercise class that's physical, like Zumba and line dancing, to 25 people. So we have waiting lists even for Douglas residents. So that's a little bit of a conundrum. And the line for the bathroom. If you got, if you're having lunch down there and you got 30 or 35 people playing bingo, and then you've got a whole card group in another room, and then it's just one of those things. Everybody's waiting before they leave in line.
Okay.
So, and the kitchen is, we make the best of it. I just got an air fryer because we figured that would be good to have the extra appliance, because we just have the regular oven. Tomorrow, we're cooking a turkey dinner for 50 people, so we have 65 pounds of turkey to cook. So we were very well challenged during COVID, so we can make a lot of food in a small space, but moving forward, it's not really.
So that'll be another topic for another time. then.
Another topic for another time is if we have a few more hundred people join between now and next year, yes, for sure.
Tax work off hours at the center, is that somebody who comes in and does tax returns for the seniors?
No, no.
What is that?
So the tax work off hours is somebody who comes in and puts together our newsletter. The painting teacher is a tax work off.
Okay.
And Nurse Ann is a tax work off. She comes in and does blood pressure clinic, health clinic, blood sugar checks, and talks to people about things, and she's been there for, oh gosh, probably like 10 or 12 years, so. And the painting teacher's the same. And,
I thought it was somebody who came in and did taxes
Yeah.
for the seniors.
No, so I tried really hard. We have to have a volunteer within our own community that volunteers through AARP and takes their training to be able to come into the center to offer tax
Oh, okay.
preparation. So they only went to certain centers. They went to the bigger ones. They went to Millbury, they went to Milford, they did go to Webster, but they're expecting that Webster's going to share with Oxford, Douglas, and Sutton, and they did go to Northbridge, but they're all full.
Oh.
They're full the second, because the senior centers know their dates before they throw them out to the public. So I did manage to get one person in Northbridge, and a couple other people. I think Jennifer put them in Millbury or Upton, so if people call early enough, we can secure them a spot. Yeah.
For that type of service, you might want to reach out to an organization called VITA, V-I-T-A. They actually do that. We run a nonprofit where I work, and they actually come out to our site and do that.
Oh.
So not only for elderly, but also income-eligible individuals as well, too. That's another outreach you could
Yeah, I would
inquire and see if they would send somebody to come in.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely host the site. We hosted probably more, I had a lot of fuel assistants this year, more than I've ever seen. We had 2 appointments for the people that were renewing. We were faxing stuff over for some people that couldn't come in. And then we had 2 full days of new applicants, just like SNAP applications. I could do 2 of those a week. So people are taking advantage of the things that they're able to get, which I'm really happy for. But that would be a great, yeah.
All right, anybody else?
I know that you've been having the pickleball over here in the gym.
Yes.
Any possibility you could move line dancing over here?
So, yes and no, it would just be a matter of if it was open or not at the time of.
You need a lot of
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
That might be something
Yeah.
to be a thought.
We did do that during COVID because we needed, spacing.
Right.
With some of the yoga. The line dancing is a younger Spire group.
Right.
Some of the other seniors didn't want to come up here because they don't want to have to go through the parking lot, up the ramps, down the elevator.
right.
So, but yes, if it gets that famous, we will definitely consider seeing if, if there's any availability in the gym, and then everybody up here is going to feel the floor bouncing.
Right.
Some toe tapping music.
Anybody else? All right, Patrice, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Patrice.
How young is a young senior, Patrice?
60.
Oh,
You are considered a senior at 60. Really? Yeah. Yes, you are. John Sancho type.
all right. We're passing on the library tonight because Justin is sick. So when did you want to reschedule him, Jean?
I was wondering if you have the availability for the school department would be your next meeting.
What do you think about that group? The 25th? Is that the tentative for the school department yet, the 25th? Is that all right with everybody? We do library before school department? So let's go for that, all right?
See you tomorrow.
All right, John and Kelly, you want to come to the chairs and identify yourselves for the record?
Sure. I'm John Furno, the fire chief.
I'm Kelly Manning, I'm the deputy fire chief.
All right, so we've had a chance to read over your report. Thank you so much for this. It's the way you organized it with paragraphs, I mean, the headings and the paragraphs and so on. Just really, really thorough. So before we questions, John or Kelly, any real challenges making out your budget for the next year? What were the hardest things, would you say?
I wouldn't say it was too challenging. We met with Matt, went over our numbers. We have a slight increase on the fire budget of 1.8%, and then the ambulance of 4% increase.
Yeah.
But we were able to get most things in that we were looking to get done this year. So, Kelly did a good job with the numbers, and we've met with Matt, and
The big challenge was on the personnel side, because we have salaries that come from both the fire side and the ambulance side, and the two activities our staff commingle. So it's sometimes difficult to predict, say, an employee is out on the fire side, out sick, somebody from the ambulance side might cover that shift, so then that side of the budget gets hit, and it's almost impossible to determine what side might be covering some of those open shifts. So we went to pretty great lengths to try to estimate. We don't have a ton of historical data because our staffing is just finally settled. Most of our employees are only tenured a couple years. So like I said, we don't have a ton of historical data to look at patterns and average sick leave usage and that sort of thing. So we went in great detail to try to determine how many hours that we would need to be covering with part-time staff in order to keep the overtime cost down. As this document alluded to, we had a lot of holes with not having paramedics, which caused our overtime to be a bit heavy. Now that those positions are filled, yay. Really, really big deal for us. We hope to see that number go down, so that's probably one of the biggest changes and the most challenging part of doing the budget.
And then either of you, I'm just always fascinated by the grant part of any budget in terms of, are the grants pretty reliable year after year, or is it kind of a nail biter for you to see what grants you're going to get? Cal, can you speak to that or not?
Yeah, so right now, you may or may not have heard, at the federal level, some of the grants are getting frozen or not funded. So like the Assistance to Firefighters grant, which I did not apply for that this year because we didn't have any eligible items. Those are extremely competitive. That was how we ended up funding a new forestry vehicle. So luckily, we got in that program before that was frozen. The rest of these, so for example, this grant that we've gotten for $15,500 that we've used for the last couple of years, actually the last 3 years, we've used it to buy various types of personal protective equipment. That should be pretty stable. I think
Okay.
next year is might be the last year of that program, but they're going to try not to sunset it just because it's so important to fire departments all through the Commonwealth.
So as you were working on the budget that we're going to vote on in May with the limits that we all have because of increases and so on. Did you feel pretty confident that as you were working on the budget, you had the money you needed, more or less?
We did,
Okay.
we did.
Any questions for the fire folk? Anybody on anything specifically?
Could I just get a quick explanation of the ambulance history and receipts on the, I understand the ambulance receipts, the ambulance state number, is that, that's not a reimbursement from the state, is it?
That's just, it comes through Medicare, or I just separated it out of the general ledger. They're all receipts.
Okay.
It's the payment towards the ambulance billing.
Okay,
Carol
so,
had asked for this.
Yeah.
the revenue. I'm sorry, that came from me, not from them.
oh, okay, sorry,
Yeah.
guys. So the ambulance receipts are what we get from private insurance customers, and the state is from Medicaid and Medicare, is that what you're?
Yeah, that's how I classified it in the general ledger.
Okay, great, thank you.
And how's the fire station building doing?
The building, we're still working on the complete HVAC system.
Yep.
Maybe you noticed that the trailers that we had out there are now gone.
Yeah.
We were able
I did
to,
notice that.
with some town meeting funds and some opera money, and working with Matt, we were able to remodel a room there, get some new heat and air conditioning and a fresh air intake, so we get the folks back in the building with fresh air, sleeping inside the building. So that saved us a lot of money on renting those, the sleeping quarters we had. So the bigger projects is the rest of the HVAC electrical. That's being worked on. Unfortunately, the bids came in almost 200,000 over we had, as you folks know. So we're regrouping and trying to work on that. The roof we're going to get done hopefully in the spring. I solicited some quotes. They came in at 61,000, so working with Matt, we're going to put out an RFP and get the roof done. We have 75 that was voted on capital a few years ago now, so we should be able to get the roof done, the money that's already been allocated.
And then your goals that you list, your 6, are those in order of priority? Or not necessarily? Like HVAC is number 1, professional development of staff number 2, and so on.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of in priority.
Okay.
You know, they're all very important, to be honest with you. We did receive the drone actually yesterday, so that's moving forward.
Flip it. Yeah. Yep.
The ultrasound program, I'm not a paramedic, but I know it's very important to get certain sick people to the right hospital by doing the ultrasounds in the ambulance. We just started a nice recruitment of call firefighters, because like myself, all the call staff have moved to the full-time side, and we've robbed the call staff. So we need to get some more call people in the door. So we're starting a program with that now as well.
And then long-term, either of you, any potential things we need to start thinking about in terms of big ticket,
I would say,
other than a new fire truck?
that's what I was going right for, Dick.
Okay.
You know, that the ladder truck it's 23 years old now. We're projecting out 2030 that it should be replaced, and it's a big ticket item. You know, the last quote I got was $1.8 million. We just, this year alone, we've spent $23,000 in that truck for repairs, and it was out of service for a couple of months waiting. We're having a hard time getting the parts as well, so.
And there's a 4-year lead time. It's a huge problem in our industry, how long it's taking to get fire trucks and ambulances. So that vehicle in particular takes the longest to build.
Yeah, you mentioned that in your paragraph called equipment. Have the other fire trucks and so on been okay in terms of maintenance?
Yeah, okay, average maintenance, I'd
Okay.
say. We have the 2017 truck that I think they built on a Monday morning, so we do get problems with that on occasion. But, you know, on our capital, we're trying to replace a 2001 tanker, which is important to our operation.
Yeah.
So
How many tankers do we have now?
just the one structural, and then We got a brush tanker from the state, so a bunch of the guys and girls at the department have done a lot of work, and that's just about ready to go on the road. So for the spring, we'll have a forestry tanker back on the road.
So if you've got a fire, though, that's outside of the hydrant district,
Yes.
you're ferrying water from a hydrant or other source?
Sure.
With one tanker?
Correct, and we'll call mutual aid and get a 4 or 5 more if we have to.
We could utilize that brush tanker in a structural incident if we had to. The problem is, in comparison with the other tanker, it does not dump the water very quickly, so we couldn't literally get the water out of the truck very fast to be able to use it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you set up like a portable
It
pool, basically.
Yeah,
that you
we
dump the
we
water,
can,
correct?
there's other methods now, the more modern methods that people are going to, but that is one of them, sure. Yeah.
Where do you get the water from to fill up these tanks if they're in the middle of a fire?
Well, we'll come in, if we can, we're close to a hydrant, we'll use the hydrant. If not, we'll draft out of a pond somewhere.
So do you have places that you can set up?
Yeah, we could set up at the res. Right now, it's not the ideal because of the ice and,
Yeah, right,
you know, it being low. Or Wallem Lake, we've done before,
right.
you know, Dudley's Pond on southeast Maine, you know, yep.
So the money, John or Kelly, that's been budgeted for maintenance, has that been enough? Has it been a good amount?
I think we've come back
Year to year?
the last few years, honestly. It's gone up this year,
It's
right?
about 36,000,
I
and
think it's went up to 40, am I wrong?
36,250, so 2 fiscal years ago, it was 25,500, and given we don't have a giant repair, that would be sufficient.
Okay. All right, any questions for the fire folk? Anybody?
We noticed that the ambulance receipts were down about 30,000. Was that because you had less calls or just the fact that you're having a little problem collecting the money?
A little of both.
A little of both, actually, yeah. Calls were down like 100 calls from last year, and
That's good, people are getting healthy.
that's correct, you know,
Well,
but
yeah, you don't have COVID either, so that really helps.
that's true too, but, you know, we have a good group of people that go out and work with people. You know, Kelly does a program at the library, we go to the senior center, and I'm thinking that's the benefits of these programs that we're out there doing, you know, to educate everyone.
It is, but it's a positive.
So the next item on our agenda, everybody, was ambulance, and that's come up already. Does anybody have any questions specifically about ambulance at this point, other than what's been asked?
The ambulance donation category, what is that money?
That's money that a citizen might come in with a check and say they want to donate to the ambulance
Oh,
department.
Does happen.
Huh. All right, anybody else? So thanks for coming in, and thank you for that thorough report.
Yeah, nice.
It was
Thank you,
well
guys.
done.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yeah, you too, thank you. So no reserve fund transfers, right, Gene?
No reserves.
Town administrator, update as needed. Mr. Wojcik, you want to come to the mic?
Is it self-funded or self-insured? Exactly.
Fix the question, right?
So, try to pick an appropriate place to start, which would probably be the fire department. Excuse me. It is our intention to do the roof this year. We actually don't have to go out to bid since it's under 100,000. So we can take the quotes that we got and pick the lowest responsive quote. So I think that's going to be on budget and on time. It is necessary. I held back for a little while because I wanted to be absolutely sure that HVAC project wouldn't require additional
Drilling the holes.
drilling holes through a brand-new roof would be kind of, the kind of thing that taxpayers don't like, none of us like, to see because it's wasteful. So I think at this point, we're clear to do the roof and not worry about that issue.
In the spring, maybe, or?
Spring, summertime. In terms of the capital budget, it's determined by the capital committee through their process with cooperation from the town administrator. My recommendation will be to prioritize the interior projects at the fire station. We bundled them all together, and that ended up being a bad strategy. So we took the electrical work, the HVAC work, and general contractor. The general contractor, realizing that there wasn't a whole lot of work for them to do, pretty much, I guess the phrase is stepped on or drew profit from a markup on the electrical and HVAC work, and the whole thing came in 200,000, way too high. So I'm picking my words carefully. We are not allowed to do bid splitting, because that is a way to game the system, to break a single united project into its component pieces and let them out a little at a time or separately because you don't want to follow the bidding process. And that's a technique that's been, the Inspector General doesn't allow. However, this project has 3 completely distinct pieces, none of which are completely dependent on the other. You could say that the electrical project makes the HVAC project possible because you're going to install enough fixtures and capacity to handle the new equipment. But they don't necessarily have to be all done at the same time. So my inclination is to pick the project into its truly distinct pieces and work with them independently from each other to reduce the budget. And if anybody wants to take me to task for it, I invite them to, because that's the only way I'm going to make it
What are the
work.
3 parts again, Matt? The roof,
Electrical, HVAC, and general contractor.
general contractor.
So very little general contracting work is involved. Some of it's protective bollards around the outside where transformer pads and other things are going to be put out there. The rest of it is interior work. It's basically building a wall to close off some of the space from the bays and, wallboard, plaster, paint, and just sequester those spaces so that we can use the new HVAC to manage the air inside those spaces better. Why that came in at 200 grand from the general contractor is ridiculous. I think we'll probably get it all done for 30 or 40. So obviously that was going to be something we'd have to address. But prioritization of the capital budget is going to be something that we're all going to have to just press the hold button on our phones. I anticipate this year that we would have somewhere around $1 million for capital, as we have sometimes more, sometimes a little bit less, each year since the override, been putting into the long-term assets of the town. This year, we have a bit of a wild card, not to get into this again, so I won't. But the select board is discussing with town council and me the strategy for the exit from the health insurance group. They're holding on to our surplus, but they're also on the hook for our so-called run out of claims. So after we leave the group, there will be a lot of claims that come in, and we will no longer be paying working rate. So the group needs to have the financial wherewithal to pay that run out of claims, because we're not on the hook until there's a reconciliation with the treasurer of the group in the fall. So we're going to leave July 1st. They can't send us a bill till November.
This has been quite a saga, hasn't it?
It's quite a saga, but all these little technical points add up to an awful lot of
Yeah.
aggravation. So I feel comfortable disclosing this much about the conversation. Worst case scenario, what happens if the group is insolvent? And our claims, our run out of claims, are not being paid by the group. I had a very disappointing and disturbing exchange with a very senior member of the state government who should know better, frankly. But he has taken the position that the Division of Local Services does not regulate municipal joint purchase groups because we have formed a board to manage our affairs, and his jurisdiction is only to manage the municipalities individually. Sounds a lot like splitting hairs to me. So I was not kind in my response. I said, so let me get this straight. Municipalities can get together, form a joint purchase group, file a nonprofit filing, and then all fail to pay their claims, and you're okay with that?
And what did he say back?
Hasn't answered that,
Oh,
because it's an absurd position, right? So,
so you didn't have.
because
to
what I said is, you want me to sue the entity that has no money and try to get money out of them? The best I could think we could do would be to sue them to get an injunction to direct them to enforce their own joint purchase agreement.
Without any money.
But they don't have any money, and they don't have the will to do it. So I think the better part of wisdom may be that we are going to freeze the capital budget to a quantity sufficient to cover our run out of claims from the health insurance group, and see if they are able to pay them. And if they're not, we would need liquid cash, and that would be free cash.
You have a sense of what that is going to be, the amount, I mean?
The run out will be between $550,000 and $600,000.
Okay.
Our surplus more than covers that. So obviously, I'm aggravated because they already have Douglas's money. So if they paid our run out of claims, and the process should be they would net that against our surplus, and our surplus would be 1.3 million minus the run out, call it $500,000. And then we'll fight about getting our surplus out, but there really are two separate issues that come together in one number, but they are two different inquiries, right? One is accumulated surplus, the other is actual claims.
Why can't you get an order to hold the surplus in escrow pending the run-up?
No comment.
Okay. Yes, understood.
I think we've got the comment.
Yes, we do. Heather, yes.
Matt, what's
But I'm glad you're around to verify my thinking.
kind of the timing on all this, Matt?
Very fast.
Is it?
So you'll notice this issue's being discussed quite a bit in the select board's executive sessions. I'm not leisure to disclose legal strategy.
Right.
But that's going to have an impact on our capital budget. Operating budget, a couple of things. First of all, actually, no, let me finish up with free cash. You have in your packet notice of deficit spending in the snow and ice account.
Right.
$75,000 is what I authorized. Prudent, because before the last storm, we really didn't have our full complement of supplies that we like to have before a big storm. The storm didn't completely materialize. But we're still playing catch-up this week, and we have a couple of small events coming. You know, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again to be timely with the notice. Small events can be just as expensive as big ones. Because things ice up, and we're dropping lots of salt, and the guys are driving for hours to resolve small accumulations of ice, but ice is extremely dangerous. So if you got a foot of snow and you plowed it however many times, 3 times, and then drop salt at the last pass, it might almost be the same cost or less. So that's the world we find ourselves in. We have lots of freeze-thaw events, and that's really informing why that budget. I think going forward, if I can swing it, I'd like to continue to increase the snow and ice budget. I want to throw more at it this year just to keep pace with the inflation. So drivers, every year we match the DOT rate. We're very aggressive in doing that to try to keep our crew loyal to us, so we're not scrambling at the last minute to find people to cover routes. It's a good strategy. It has worked very well. However, it puts pressure on the snow and ice budget. We need to keep it moving in the same direction. So now to the operating budget. Just before this group convened, I got an email from Dr. Fitzpatrick at BVT. And in our last meeting, I had emphasized that that was a wild card that would have a significant impact on our budget. And I don't know what I was smoking. I'll share it with you because it's good stuff. I was thinking that would be a 4.5% increase, right? On the theory that how many more of our students could they possibly take? And the actual request is for a 12.1% increase, which is $140,000 more than I had budgeted, and I had already budgeted an increase. So that brings their request, their assessment, as of now, $2,071,945. So that puts a little bit of a hole in my bottom line. Right now, it's a 5-digit hole. I don't usually panic about 5-digit holes or even 6-digit holes if I think I have arrows in my quiver. If you've been listening to the select board meetings or watching them, I'm going to put an exclamation point at the end of this now. I have to go out to bid for property casualty insurance. I have to. I have no choice. We can argue about how many angels can dance on the head of a pin about the process, broker or not a broker. We have to do this because that's where we're going to save the money to balance the budget.
You have to get going on that pretty soon.
Right away.
Yeah.
I don't have time. I got to fill out some questionnaires. And I failed to bring this up at the select board meeting. It's my fault because I have a lot on my mind, so sometimes I forget important things. We cannot go direct to property and casualty insurance carriers. They don't work that way. The only company I ever dealt with that did direct sales was Geico. They even called themselves Geico Direct. If you were a government employee, and I was, you could call Geico and they would sell you a policy. They would lock you in right away on the phone. It's cool.
Did they send a little salamander too, or no?
There was no lizard at the time. It really was a government employee-focused product. Now it's not. So if you want to place your property casualty exposure with Travelers, for instance, you have to go through a Travelers producer, which is going to be a broker. We don't need to follow Chapter 30B for a broker. We can pick a broker because we know them, trust them, like them, whatever. And frankly, with the time pressure that we have, we're going to have to do that. So to the extent that I've worked with people in the past, know them and trust them and believe they're going to do good work, that's where I'm going to push my recommendation, because I need to trust the person I'm dealing with to shop our business to 4 or 5 carriers, clearly explain the difference between those different carriers, and explain the differences between those proposals and Maya. Maya most certainly will bid. They are the incumbent. There are a number of reasons why they've put themselves in this pickle, and I think one of them is they expect us to leave. So in these last 4 years, they haven't hesitated to increase our premium to cover some big losses, but also because if we leave, they'll never get that money. So I think there's a little bit of a scorched earth mentality there, which is not going to suit well for their chances of keeping our business. The premium I have in the budget this year is $609,000. That's up from $359,000 just 4 years ago. So that's a really aggressive rate of increase. And
What's your deadline for that?
everyone I've spoken to says that's just not even close to being the right number. It should be more like 350. The deadline, so it's February, right? We would like to lock all of that in by April, late April, early May, the latest. So, but if I think there's that much of a swing, that's how we're going to lock ourselves into a long-term good place. Because I don't see it coming from anywhere else. The department heads have been extremely cooperative with our expense cap. And now that I've been through police, fire, and highway, I don't expect any big changes in the personnel piece. So I'm kind of locked into the budget that I have.
So as you're looking at your Excel, are the 2 wild cards kind of this insurance one and then the surprise of Valley Tech? Are those kind of the 2
Well, it's not a surprise anymore, they told me.
Well, but,
So your wild cards remaining would be Norfolk Aggie, because it's expensive, so.
And how about school
One or two students can really swing you there. What's that?
school transportation, is that still?
I have an estimate from the business manager, and you'll be speaking to them soon enough.
Okay.
I think her estimate is a worst-case scenario, and I appreciate that approach. I've also said publicly, I'm not going to back down from it. If they save money on the school transportation contract, I expect them to use that in their operating budget. I'm not going to take it back to the town. So I don't see the education portion of the budget being the place where we make up this difference. And that's why I'm focusing on that one big account. Because the one place I can see us saving substantial money. I had one other point I wanted to bring up to you. Just give me a second to. One of the things I'd like to do with any savings from property casualty insurance is increase the reserve fund. So Maya has already given us deductibles, per incident deductibles, $25,000.
Matt, tell us again what Maya is.
Maya is.
Mass?
You want me to play with this acronym? I could have fun all night.
Yeah.
It's the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association, something.
Okay.
In Rhode Island, it's the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust. I know that really, like this. Same principle, right, municipalities pool risk.
Yeah.
It's largely a creature of the MMA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Listen, they're not bad people to work with, they're good people, but they're just, I think, kind of stuck in their ways. But the deductible has two effects, one of which they say that they want to close the door to a stream of smaller claims, to do this, that, and the other thing. So you have to truly have a casualty before they are interested in picking up the tab. Secondly, there's the economics, just the economics of their trust. They need to keep their rates sufficient to cover the risk presented by the entire pool. So we face that, it's almost like trend in health insurance. But $25,000, we don't have that to throw around. So if I beef up your reserve fund and you don't use it, it'll close to free cash, and that's that. But if we come to you and say, oh yeah, we just clanked a building, we'd make our deductible without having to go to extraordinary lengths to change the budget to pay for something like that out of what? We don't have a quote-unquote kitty. There is no kitty. The reserve fund is the only place where there's extra money in the budget to deal with unforeseen circumstances. So I guess my closing point would be, I'm still working on your pie chart, but Dr. Fitzpatrick took a much bigger slice than he was supposed to. There weren't enough cherries to go around in the pie, so I'll be fixing that up.
Is that because we're taking more kids or just their budget's coming up?
Oh my gosh. There's a really verbose explanation in his email. I'm happy to forward it to everyone.
Okay.
The budgeteers at the state level are going to be, I believe, moving away from enrollment figures as the basis for the distribution of funds. Because enrollments are down in more than 200 school districts statewide. So now they're going to start looking at our property values and our tax burden. And Dr. Fitzpatrick suggests that the basis of evaluation would be 2022 and 2021 figures. Now, last I looked, it's 2025. It might help us in a way to go back before the world before the cubes. Might help us a little bit. But in the grand scheme of things, it sounds like we're going to go to a different form of formula-based funding for education that warrants a lot more discussion than it seems to be getting so far.
So Matt, I have a couple questions. One,
I'm sorry, can I just,
go ahead.
the
Brian.
BBT census he's working from is the current freshman class he's now added into our census, is that correct?
Yeah, so we had enrollment figures as of October.
Yeah, so it's current census that is estimated. So we had an increase in the current census above those that went out, which is driving some.
Well, like I say, they're changing the basis for the formula for allocating this to us. So it certainly looks like, if you do a 12% increase, I think his baseline is 4.5, period. So if it's the same number of students, we would have gone up 4.5. Anything above that is going to be a combination of whatever extraordinary expenses he has and more headcount. So I don't know if this has been discussed at the school committee, Mr. Chairman, but I haven't seen the enrollment figures, so I don't know.
Oh, so he doesn't send you the enrollment figures as part of his
If I
estimate?
want anything from him, I have to ask for it.
Yes, I know.
Would you like me
I
to
just
ask?
assumed, that little packet we get, I assumed he sent you some version of that. No. Okay.
I get the same thing you get.
Question on your comment you made before, they're changing the formula. Is that a formula that the state's changing on what they would give to us for our Douglas school system? Or are you saying for the participants in the technical vocational schools, wouldn't necessarily be based upon enrollments either?
So there's something here I don't fully understand, Mr. Chairman, but I'll do the best to at least flag what it is you want to look at. In his correspondence, Dr. Fitzpatrick refers to a minimum contribution increase. That's somewhere in the state government, that's calculated by someone. And the minimum increase for BVT this year was $119,000. So about, he uses the figure 64% of his ask, the increase that he asked for, is driven by the state increasing our minimum contribution level to BVT. I've not heard of that.
The 119 is based on a state telling?
So think of it as a minimum contribution,
Okay.
right?
Minimum contribution for every town.
For the towns in the BVT.
In the BVT.
Right.
exactly.
I don't want to get too much into Dr. Fitzpatrick's hocus pocus, right? Who bleeping cares what the minimum is? You asked for 36% above it, right? So how is the increase in the minimum really matter at all when you know you're going to ask us for so much more than that, right? So you didn't start with that as a baseline and then add 36% to that. You got to where you got to, and then you're trying to reason your way backwards by saying, well, the floor went up. We've never paid them the floor. We've been way above the floor all these years, so if the floor goes up, he's saying it automatically pushes this up. Right, that's his explanation, which I'm not really accepting, but
So to Mike's question about.
but they're in, I'm not going to try to interpret his words for you, I'm going to send you his words. He says that in deciding how much money a community needs to pay into its regional voc tech, budgeteers have been put on notice that they're going to move away from enrollment and do a sort of a per head, almost like a tuition charge, to a contribution calculation based on our ability to pay.
So in theory, Mr. Chair, it sounds to me like you could not send a single student to that vocational, as far-fetched as that may be, but yet still have a rather large contribution based upon your ability to pay? If I'm hearing you correctly.
Which, if I were in the town of Milford,
That would love.
I would shake at my knees, because they don't send anywhere near that much students. But their ability to pay calculation,
Would be lower.
lower.
Grafton, the town that gave them hurt.
Potentially Grafton, Sutton.
Us,
Upton, Sutton,
us,
Douglas.
Northbridge.
Just think of the towns with the higher property values, if that's what you're basing it off from.
Yep.
Hopedale would be designated.
seemed like the weighted average was the way to go based upon head count. You know,
Yeah.
everybody kind of paid their fair share for their
What they using?
amount of participation.
But that's not Dr. Fitzpatrick's origination, that's
No.
the state recalculator bureau.
Ominous. Just when you thought they couldn't get any more expensive, they might.
So Matt, as we look ahead to the town meeting in May and the warrants, is there going to be one for the fire, for the highway barn?
Oh, yeah.
And are the details of that pretty close to being set somewhere in terms of amounts and so on?
Yeah.
In other words, when we have our public hearing on the warrant articles, will that all be wrapped up and ready to be explained to the public?
Yeah.
Okay.
So where we are in the process is getting, we have a phone call tomorrow, I think, with the designers who are preparing the bare bones. This is where a building could be located. This is roughly what it would look like, square footage, and site development costs and other cost estimates that we've had a chance to vet with our own understanding of who's going to do what work. In terms of actually approaching the party with a potential closing, we're still not there yet, because they being the owner was having some difficulty getting engineers to do the dam safety report. So we have reached out to the firm the town uses for the dam that we own. They're willing to give us a quote. I'm waiting for that. It should be in this week.
So have you gotten some estimates of what it's going to cost for the site work?
We pushed back really hard on them.
Is, I mean, you know, how much is it going to cost to bring the water down there? How much is it going to cost to, you know, bring the driveway down there? The price of gravel's going through the roof.
So the conversation today, getting down to brass tacks, was we shared our flow tests on the hydrants on Rydell and Main.
Yeah.
We did some boring, so we had some of the soil permeability and other tests there, suitability for building.
Right,
So we're getting there.
right. But you're going to have a 20,000 square foot level area.
Yep.
So, yeah. Doesn't look like they left too much gravel behind. They took it all out of there.
They took it all out and they pushed some of it up into a pile.
Yeah. I wondered what's in the pile. Have you checked that out?
It's gravel.
Yeah. I'm surprised anybody leave a teaspoon behind.
I know it. I know, especially given the party that it was, but, you know, he didn't own it for very long. It was somebody else held that property
Yeah.
before, so.
So you feel pretty good that the warrant article will be all ready to go in May about this?
No.
We won't have a delay until the...
I will not be satisfied until Carol is satisfied.
Carol wants to know a lot.
So I am not going to get too excited about it until a member of the Finance Committee who has been vocal on the issue believes we have dotted our i's.
Okay. How about word on the street about other warrant articles, Matt? Are any that you're heard of that might have a big financial impact?
No.
Okay.
We're going to have some clarification to do on this abomination that the state gave us around accessory dwelling units.
Oh, okay.
And we did preserve the town's position at the last town meeting by passing a bylaw that locked in some of our local regulatory framework.
Did they get accepted by the Attorney General?
So they haven't heard back from them yet. So what's crossed in the mail is the state submitted their regulations
Yep.
for public review after our town meeting.
Right.
So we kind of like, we basically set up our safety net for February 1st.
Right.
So that's
Yep.
kind of there.
Yeah.
But now they have these regulations out for comment. Anything to do with building, you can imagine, every scenario you think could come up gets quadrupled by the fact that you have all kinds of accessory dwelling units. And for those of you who've served on the planning board or other boards, you know, some ADUs are in an existing structure. Some of them are alongside and attached with a walkway. Some of them that are contemplated by the new state law would be freestanding, far away from the existing structure. If you have one in your existing structure that's pre-existing non-conforming, you still have the right to build another one as of right. So there's all these little scenarios that we've been parsing out internally. We had a long meeting yesterday on what adjustments we may need to make to our bylaw and just how we're going to police all of this. We're trying to communicate to those citizens in Douglas who already have an accessory dwelling unit, whether or not they need a permit, what they're going to be allowed to do or not allowed to do under the law. So at least start a dialogue with people. And then you've got, the code has changed, so you've got all the code misers thinking, well, does everything have to be upgraded to modern fire code? Do you need a separation? And there's just a lot of gray area. But by the time we get to town meeting, we have to try to close some of those doors so we don't completely lose the feel of single-family residential zoning.
You think we might have to have another bylaw?
Yeah, we're probably going to be required to amend the one that was passed. Yeah. Then we'll probably have a stormwater bylaw. We'll, in terms of financial, I'm not thinking that it will be any beyond what we've talked about.
Any questions for Matt? Anybody? Anything?
Can I get a copy of what they sent from the state on their requirements now on that accessory bylaw?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to see that. I do have a question about when we get the information for the new town barn and stuff, you know, we'd like to get some, a little bit of heads up so we can ask questions and stuff like that, instead of all of a sudden just coming in, this is the lump sum, this is how much we need. And then, like, how are we gonna pay for it? That's the big thing, is how are we gonna pay for this?
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, I'm in favor of a lot of process, right? We'll post public session to talk about these things, maybe special meeting of the select board, however we go about it. There needs to be multiple opportunities for the public to interface with it. We'll put projected plans and whatnot on the website in advance so people can get to them, and make the civil engineers and the designers available to answer questions as well. That's what we did with North Street, and even though we weren't successful getting the grant, I was asked during the Super Bowl party, it was a Douglas resident asked me, we're still doing this project on North Street, and I said, we're going to break it into pieces. You will see change, but just not the wholesale all-at-once change that we had talked about. But that's how we want to roll. We want to make sure that everybody has the information.
Instead of everybody asking the questions at the town meeting.
Yeah, that never goes well, right? Because then everybody hasn't had a chance to parse out. You can have a weakness in the plan, you can address it before town meeting.
Absolutely.
And not have to try to make up or come up with an answer on the fly to a legitimate point that's made, but now it's the pressure's on because this is go or no-go.
Exactly.
Have all those conversations before you get to town meeting, so when the vote is well-informed, but also you don't have that hesitancy to pull the trigger, go or no-go. I've always anticipated, the one thing I want to be clear about, always anticipated a borrowing for this, a general obligation debt.
For the
highway barn.
Okay.
Of a certain size. And to me, that's the obstacle. If it's too much money, then we simply can't do it. So as much as I feel that there's a need for the building and it has to be done, at the end of the day, we're going to be conscientious about how much we're asking the taxpayer to pay. You've had some debt issues roll off over the last couple of years that reduced the overall debt burden as part of people's tax bill. But having said that, doesn't mean you automatically backfill it with the same amount. The environment has to be favorable to the release of a debt issue. And this is where some of the uncertainty or controversy in Washington and other places is troublesome, because what is the overall impact going to be on the economy of different things that are playing out? And how will that affect interest rates? At the end of the day, without taking a position on any one policy or another, all we really care about is how much are we going to pay to use other people's money? And if it gets to be too much, then it's not a good deal for the town. So I guess that's the last thing I'll end with, the federal freeze on funding. We're not overly exposed to it. We don't have a lot of federal grants on the municipal side. I would encourage Finance Committee members to ask the school department how it's going to have an impact on them. I don't know if the school committee's had that conversation yet or not. There's a lot of controversy around the Department of Education at the federal level and how they operate and the funding sources that they provide to us. And this is not a new issue. I think people, because it's such a big splash and such a quick move by the new president, but having worked at Capitol Hill in the 90s, we always had the same fight. Congress would say, you're going to spend this money. The administration would say, that's a stupid policy, we're not doing that. And there would be this fight over whether or not a congressional appropriation would actually be implemented by the executive branch. And we saw that a lot of times with military systems. Congress would approve a system that the particular branch didn't want. And so they would drag their feet and they wouldn't spend the money. And not that the V-22 Osprey comes to mind or anything. They call them Marine killers. They're really not the best plane ever. So there's nothing new here. It's just the size of it and the breadth of the scope of the order to freeze all these funds. I anticipate that a lot of this stuff will clear up very quickly. It's just a certain amount of drama created to give people the impression that we're going through everything carefully to make sure the money is spent according to the priorities of the administration. I think we all know what the targets really are, and those kinds of programs are not implicated in Douglas. We don't have them. So, might be a little bit of a ripple in the water. I think perhaps the one area where I hope we don't see too much disturbance are the grant stream that comes out of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Because there's a lot of planning funds and a lot of equipment that we would really never put in our own capital budget because it'd just be awfully hard to sustain that. Mm-hmm. We would fund it with grant money and not taxpayer money. If all that gets shut down for a long period of time, it will affect things that we do.
Okay,
I have one more question.
go ahead, Karen. Carol.
There was a party that we thought might come in for a abatement, and they had till February 1st. What has happened with that?
So that's almost like a formulaic, so they did come in for an abatement. I don't have a number. I don't like to speak for the assessor, but my understanding is he's not terribly concerned with the conversation. Now, if you think about it, if you were that big of a taxpayer,
Yeah.
you would almost just do it out of necessity. You're just going to dot your i's and cross your t's, cross your full program, and make sure that you're getting the right bill. I'm not too worried about it myself.
So that's just kind of a little bit up in the air yet. Okay. So it's not as been put to bed yet.
Yeah, so the thing is, we're not in a position to say, oh, all those funds are going to be released.
Right. Okay, I understand what you're saying.
How long does it take for us to figure that out? Obviously, there's a process.
Yeah, there's the abatement process, so the Board of Assessors will schedule a hearing, and there'll be a conversation.
What is that, like a 30-day, 45-day, 60-day
90, I
timeframe?
think.
90 days.
90
Yeah.
days?
All right, anybody else for Matt? Mr. Wojcik, thank you.
Thank you, as always.
Appreciate it.
Travel safely.
Thanks.
Okay, let's carry on with our agenda, everybody. So let's just look ahead at the calendar. So February 25, is the school department a go for that
There we go.
And then we're going to do the library first, right?
I'm gonna try to.
I'll be
sneak them
joining
in.
via Zoom for that meeting.
Okay.
I'm away, so,
Disney Cruise number 2.
no, work.
And then Jean, is BVT still on for March 11? Or is that
I-
tentative yet?
I have Board of Health scheduled for March 11th.
Okay.
BBT, I will try to get in after them.
On that same date or another time?
What's your pleasure?
Well, let's see. The school, library, Board of Health, BVT, are there any other departments you feel strongly about we need to have before us personally? Because that leaves March 25 as open for kind of last minute too, doesn't it?
I would like to see where the special articles come in, and maybe have community development here on the 25th, as well as, if you want, BVT. Do you want to try to have BVT on the 11th?
How about that, you guys, BVT on the 11th
Yes.
and Board of Health together? I think we can do those two.
Yeah, would help.
And then leave March 25 for whatever comes up.
We may need a meeting on the new building, right?
Right, and then the 8th is when we'll go through the warrant articles in a public forum.
If they're ready, I would prefer to at least
Know about-
have a presentation on the new barn.
Who would do that, I wonder? So Gene, if we wanted somebody to give us a presentation on the highway barn, who could do that on March 25, say? Or Ryan, could we wait? Well, the 8th, we're going over the warrant articles, and there'll probably be one there for the barn. Could we fit that in on the 8th or not?
Is the 8th the public
Yeah.
hearing? So we're voting that night as well, right? Yeah.
I think we want it the week of March 20th.
I would rather it have March 25th if they're ready. I mean, if they're
Who
not ready,
could,
then they're
who
ready.
would be a good person to contact on that?
I will reach out, well, I think it would be Matt and maybe Adam. And then we may have, someone else do the presentation, but I would reach out to them first.
So March 25?
Okay.
We'll shoot for that for a presentation on the highway barn. Good idea, Ryan.
One of the things that they're talking about, he mentioned was maybe having a public hearing to do
Okay.
this. And, that would be, if we could actually have at least files so that we could all be there, you know what I mean? We can't all be in the same room unless we
Yeah,
put something,
if they're going to do it at a selectman meeting, and we
Yeah.
can make it a joint meeting on the 21st, or
where we could get all the
or
information.
yeah, that would be fine, too.
You know. But I think we have to know ahead if they're going to do that, because we have to say that we're having a meeting because we're going to have more than a quorum.
Yep.
And
Are they gonna-
at the same time.
Is there going to be a formal presentation to the select board about the new highway barn? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
And that was kind of what I thought I was getting the gist from him, have some public hearings where people can ask a lot of questions.
That's the public hearings, that's not.
But for us to even be at the public hearing all together at the same time asking questions, we got to post it that we're going to
Yes.
be there. That's what I'm saying.
But if they come here on the 25th,
Right.
would that be
Well, you know what?
good enough,
That
Carol,
would
or
be
not?
good, except that he's talking about bringing in some engineers and, so, I guess maybe we need to work it out with him. How many times the engineer's going to want to show up to answer all these questions and stuff.
Gene, could you ask Matt if there's going to be an agenda time for the select board to go over the whole proposal for the highway barn? And then, would you want that to be done again with us, Carol, or that we would either go or watch it on Zoom, that presentation?
Oh, I wouldn't want to watch it on Zoom. I want to be able to be, I know we can ask questions on Zoom, that don't work so good. I
But
think
if-
we should be there, yeah.
If the select board has a formal time on their meeting before our meeting,
Well, maybe we could put it on for the 25th that we'll hear it, and then if things work out, that we get enough information from whatever hearing they have, we could maybe not have them show up. but maybe we should put them on.
So pencil it in for the 25th? then?
Yeah, or just leave it open and see where we're at. I
Right,
mean,
and see where we're at.
if it's going to be on the warrant, we need to be able to ask questions. The other, she says the engineer, there's the financial aspect
Right, right.
as well.
This is a big ticket item.
Right, how we're going to, you know, what the bond details are going to be. So maybe we leave it open and then whatever, you know, I don't understand Matt's schedule. Seems like it's coming on fast and furious to be on the warrant, which is going to close in early April, right?
So, let me just ask you this, everybody. So let's say that March 18 is when the select board meets. They meet the week before we do. We meet on the 25th. So let's say on March 18, there's a agenda item on the select board's agenda to go over in lots of detail the proposal for the highway barn. Would some or most or all of you be willing to either watch it on Zoom or come here and pay attention? Or would you want to have a separate replay of that for us the following week?
I think if everybody's not going to be there, we do need a separate replay for us.
Okay. So we should keep March 25 open for a presentation on the highway barn then? Even if the selectmen have a week before?
Right,
Well, you can poll us, and we can have a joint meeting, we could,
yeah.
you know, see where, I mean, I'm happy to go on the 18th. I don't, you know,
Just depends on what the work schedule is. I mean,
Yeah.
for me.
So let's keep the 25th open for a presentation to us on the new highway barn with all the detail that they can muster, with the understanding that if they're going to have one at the select board the week before, some people may watch it or attend it just because they want to. That sound okay, everybody? Yeah. Okay. So any other comments or questions on the upcoming schedule, everybody?
can we ask for a couple of things from the school department? Would you rather I email those to you or tell you?
Yeah, if you could email them, that would be
Sure.
great. So they're in your words.
Okay.
Yeah, so our next meeting, the 25th, is the library first and then the school department. Okay. All right, I did send you meeting minutes of January 14. Did you get a chance to look at those, everybody? We don't have them yet for the 28th, so we'll just hold off on that. But any comments or questions on the January 14 minutes, anyone?
I move to approve the meeting minutes of January 14th.
Second.
So Howard moves, we approve, Heather seconds. Any discussion on the motion, anybody? All right, all in favor say aye.
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 I'm going to abstain because I kept going in and out watching that.
Yeah, that's right, you were in cyberspace.
I was.
So Carol abstains. Any objection, anybody? Okay, so the motion carries 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yes, 1 abstention. All right. Any more things we need to talk about tonight, anybody? All right, motion to adjourn, anyone?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Heather moves, we adjourn. at
8:17.
8:17, seconded by Lynn, thank you. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, the motion carries, we adjourn at 8:17.